Hey everyone. My athletes, I have to wear glasses now to read, so I am getting a little older. It's great being back here. It's seeing Anthony and his family and some of his old teammates here, and Coach Sanchez back there. I remember when I asked Coach Sanchez, how do you win so many titles? And he said, talent. He's like, that's how I win titles, talent. And now with my coaching position now and what I do, when people ask, you know, how do we win? I say talent, and I always think of Coach Sanchez. So it's good to see you, and congratulations as well. Okay, so some of you guys may have heard the story of when I first met Ant, but it was my very first day of work. Joan McDermott had hired me, and in comes this guy looking rough and tough and tattooed. I was a little scary. I wasn't sure if what to do, but he said, hey, I'm a pretty good runner, and I want to have a chance of running on your team. I heard we started a program. And I said, all right, that's great. What have you been up to? And he's like, well, right now I'm an electrician, and I've been out of school for a year. And I'm like, well, perhaps college maybe isn't your thing, and maybe you should stay what you're doing. He's like, no, I'm going to start going into school, and I'm gonna come run for you. I'm like, well, maybe we want you to think about it and go home. He's like, no, I'm coming out for this team. And he's like, but I first got to tell you, he's like, I got a baby boy. I'm working full time, but I'm gonna make this work somehow. And so I went down to Joan's office and I said, hey, we've got this guy. I did look him up. He happened to be a state champion, talent, right, Coach Sanchez. And so I said, hey, do you think we can give this guy a shot? And Joan said, well, he would have to sit out a year, but if he goes to school, he passes all of his classes, he does those things, we can give him a scholarship. Well, as you can see now, he's a multiple-time All-American. He's a two-time national champion. He was also conference All-Academic, and he's an agent, actually now, down in the New Mexico State Patrol, and we can all be very proud of him. It's one thing I wanted to just quickly say about Anthony is a story is we had this pretty good team. We were right on the verge of maybe qualifying for nationals. And Anthony was our top guy. This is cross country. Now, mind you, Anthony's a track guy. He's a fast guy. Not as fast as his brother Gabe, but he's pretty but he's pretty fast, Gabe, I'll get that 50 from you when I but we're going out, and we are somewhere, we were out in Nebraska somewhere, and it was the night before the race, and Ant was just really broken. His foot was killing. We needed him to run to qualify for the national championships. And we go out there, the team's warming up, and Ant's sitting on the bus. It's cold, it's starting to snow, and it's getting nighttime. I said, Ant, get off the bus. Let's go out there and we'll see if we can jog a little bit. And the whole team is kind of fogging up the windows of the bus, looking out. If Ant can run, please hope Ant can run. If he can just jog. And Ant gets out there, and he's jogging around the grass. He's like this. Right? But the whole time he's telling me, I can run tomorrow. I can run tomorrow. I can do this. Now, he had a broken foot, turns out. He didn't run. But he was willing to go out there and race with a broken foot for his team. I think we missed making it to nationals that year by just a couple points. If we would have had Ant, we would have made it. Now, of course, he came back the next year and the years after, and we had a lot of success, and we qualified for national championships as a team and so forth. But I always thought that was pretty cool. And I get an opportunity now to work with some great athletes, and I always think sometimes they come up to me and say, I don't feel very good, I'm a little sick, I'm a little nervous. I'm like, you know what? I've seen tough, man. And that team at Metro State, led by Anthony Luna, that was the toughest group of athletes I've ever had. So it's pretty cool. Anthony, this university provided Anthony with a second chance. All right, there was pretty much someone said, hey, you know what? You had a little kid, your senior year in high school, and you go out and do, hey, it's a great job. But he wanted to get his education, and he wanted to do some great things. This university was the only place that gave him a chance. And he took that chance and he ran with it, literally, to become what he has become. I had to privileged to be at Anthony and Kyla's wedding. I think we've got to be at a year anniversary, right? Just hit it, yeah, 1 year, yeah. And what a wonderful thing, because I'm down there, and I got to believe almost every single one of those guys on that team, when you were there for that 4 years, were down there. You know, it was just so wonderful that the way he led that team and inspired that team, and the way that he does today, and a lot of those athletes are here supporting him tonight, is just a wonderful thing. And it inspires me personally. And if there's one athlete that's inspired me as a coach, of all the great athletes I've had the privilege to work with, if there's one athlete that's inspired me and said, you know what, this is possible, you can actually overcome something, the one guy I always think about is Anthony. And I know his teammates from that time feel the same, his family feels the same, and we all look up to Anthony. He's just a wonderful guy, and he's one of my most favorite people on this planet. And it is my great privilege to introduce Anthony Luna.
Coach, thank you. Thank you, man. Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Coach. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So this university brings back a lot of memories. It really does. I started this rodeo ride a long time ago, back in the fall of 2005. I didn't know what to expect, and I'll get into my speech here a little bit more. It's a little bit more structured, and I can just read off of it, which makes things easier for me. I just wanted to kind of express, you know, my coaches and my family. I have my beautiful wife. We've been married now for 1 year. Our anniversary was the 7th of October. The funny thing about this is last year I was called upon to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. It just so happened it was the same day I was getting married. So I told the wife, I'm like, hey, I'm getting inducted. I don't know what you're doing on that day. But it was good. I ended up getting married to my beautiful wife, and it was a beautiful, beautiful time. I want to thank my coaches, not only Coach Pete. Coach Pete was one of the best coaches I've ever come in encounter with. That guy, not only just a coach, he was a life mentor. And anybody who ever ran for Coach Pete can say the exact same thing. The man was awesome. The man didn't just write track workouts. He wrote life workouts. He laid down the foundation that many of us still pride ourselves on today. So, Coach Pete, you deserve a great hand of applause, and I thank you so much for everything you've ever done for us. There's some other coaches here that I'd like to thank that actually came. Coach John back in there. Man, my senior year of college, that guy was a head coach here at Metro. And I know he probably said I was really stubborn back in the day, but that's all untrue. Coach John's dream and his vision with his athletes was very great, and I want to thank you as well. Thank you. The last coach I'd like to thank is Coach John Escobar, who's sitting just right back there. Coach John Escobar was mine and my brother's head coach at our high school. He actually is the one who got us into running. And when I tell you that, you know, when I joined cross country when I was a freshman in high school, he's like, yeah, you got to run 3.1 miles. I'm like, yeah, right. I'm not running 3.1 miles. That's way too long. My brother and I had a hard time with running that long and getting adjusted, but it turned out to be great. Like Coach Pete was saying, I did turn out to be a state champion in high school in the 800. So thank you, Coach, for coming as well. Before I get started, I just want to thank family and friends who have traveled long ways to be here, to watch me get inducted to the Hall of Fame. This is a very special moment in my life. It really is. So thank you. All right, so it's almost been 10 years since I've worn a racing singlet at Metro. While preparing my speech, I kept asking myself, how do I bring back such a memorable time in my life? There are a lot of variables that have contributed and shaped my success, not only as a runner, but as a person. And as I think of these different variables, I ask myself, what if? What if I would have grown up not a twin? Would I have been as competitive? The funny thing about my twin brother Gabriel there, that Coach Pete liked to mention that he was faster than me, is every training run my brother and I would ever go on, it'd either end up in a fist fight at the end or we'd be sprinting. So either way, we were exhausted, right? Or what if I had given up after countless failures in my life, both on and off the track? What if Coach Pete, Joe McDermott, who was the athletic director at the time, and Metro State would have never taken a chance on an 18-year-old kid from Denver who had a 6-month-old baby, who now my 6-month-old baby right there is my son, Anthony Luna, who's there in all the blue there. Son, wait for him. So what if they would have never taken a chance on an 18-year-old kid from Denver who had a 6-month-old baby at the time and whose face sheet looked more like another statistic rather than a national champion? Prior to me starting my academic and collegiate career at Metro State, I worked as an electrical apprentice, and I didn't like what I was doing because I knew I belonged on the track. I pulled wire for about a year, and after graduating high school, I didn't run a single step during that time. I'd received a phone call from Coach Pete early summer of 2005. Coach Pete, he was desperate to find bodies with legs, right? You can contest to that, Coach. Asking if I'd be interested in becoming a road runner. Coach Pete and I met a few weeks after where we discussed options on becoming a student athlete, and although I remember leaving that meeting feeling like the mountain I was about to climb was the size of Everest, I knew this would be my only shot. My first year at Metro, I was ineligible and I could not compete. I had left high school as state champion in the 800-meter run, and I don't remember losing my entire junior or senior year. Well, I found out quick that in college I would do a lot more losing than I would winning initially. Coach Pete told me to hang my Metro singlet in my room and dream of days where I would wear that racing singlet and represent my school and the city of Denver. My second year competing, which was my NCAA freshman year, was a year that defined my perseverance. I lost a lot that year. I remember thinking to myself, if I still had what it took to be a national champion or be that kind of caliber athlete. Well, one thing I do know is that to be a successful student athlete, you must believe in your coach and your teammates. You've got to weather the bad storms that come and go, and you must keep pushing for more and never give up. You must live the life of a champion. The motto, "Live the Life," became a team favorite, but more so a lifestyle that we all begin to live. My sophomore year, things began to shift for me. I made it to the 2008 NCAA Indoor National Championship meet in Duluth, Minnesota, and I took the bronze prize. Finishing third gave me confidence and a goal to win the outdoor championship. That spring, I ran one of the fastest times in the country, and I ran for the NCAA title and lost the championship by only 2/100ths of a second. That summer, I competed at the historic Hayward Field in Oregon at the USA Championships, racing the 800 against some of the world's best. The motto, "Live the Life," became more real. That following March in 2009 in Houston, Texas, I ran away with the NCAA prize. I was the indoor track national champion and the first for Metro State's program. I remember embracing Coach Pete at the finish line historically, as a lot of athletes usually do. I was crying and overwhelmed with my win, thinking that Coach was going to be just as excited as I was. Coach Pete looked me in the eyes and he said, "If you want to be considered a national champ, you've got to win the outdoor title." Coach Pete knew that these were words that would only motivate me. That spring, I ran away with another national championship in San Angelo, Texas. I remember when Coach handed me my national track trophy, I asked him, "Coach, is this good enough?" And he looked at me and he said, "Hardly." Coach Pete left Metro State the end of my junior year to take the head coaching position at Washington State University. I was faced with a hard decision to make. Do I leave Metro or do I follow Coach Pete? Or do I stay and I represent this school and the community that have given me an opportunity for a second chance? Coach Pete and I had a lot of heart-to-hearts that summer, and I remember telling him I was going to stay a road runner, that I was a road runner through and through, and this is where I belonged. I suffered an injury my senior year during the cross-country season that put me out most of my indoor track season. I ran the DMR relay, which placed fourth at the NCAA championships in Albuquerque. My outdoor season, I ran only 4 races due to my injury before the national championship race in Charlotte, North Carolina. I remember the emotions and feelings that came across while waiting at the starting line of my last collegiate race. I remember thinking, what if? It's amazing how much information the human brain can process in a matter of moments. In the short time I stood there with my competitors, I began to rethink my time at Metro State. The hours spent grinding workouts with teammates, my family and friends back home hoping for another win, how good it would feel to call my twin brother Gabe and tell him, I won again, or to call Coach Pete and let him know they couldn't catch me once again. I remember getting set on the line, the gun going off. Excuse me, let me just get this out of the way. I remember getting set on the line and the gun going off. I felt good as I hit the bell lap thinking I was going to run away with another national championship. With 100 meters left in the race, I moved up to second place, and I can recall seeing the back of my competitor and not being able to catch him. He ran through the finish line taking the NCAA prize, and I crossed the finish line in second place. I fell to my knees in disbelief. I had lost my last collegiate track race on its biggest stage. Now, there is a reason why the first phone call I made when I found out I was being inducted to the Hall of Fame was to my former head coach, Coach Pete Julian. You see, racing and running in college was more than just winning and losing. It was about building a foundation for your character that would follow you for decades to come. I remember getting off the track in North Carolina after my loss, knowing Coach would be disappointed to see me with my head down in defeat. He knew you didn't have to win a national championship to be a champion. There was a speech Coach told the team often about living the life of a champion. He said that one must believe that from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, that you are capable and willing to do all things champions do. You may be getting last and kicked down, but you prepare and act like a champion during the day, and at night you dream of things to become. To live the life of a champion, you become a person people count on. You show respect to your competitors and the people you surround yourself with. You take care of your body, for it's the only thing that you own. You live in the moment, and you understand that every minute of every day is an opportunity to shape your legacy. You don't talk about the things you do not have, but give thanks to the things you do. You never say, nobody thought I could make it. You're here because of all the people who knew you could make it. If you live the life of a champion, you get it that you'll likely get knocked down and get a few cuts and bruises along the way. You even understand that you may get knocked down and never get back up. There isn't going to be a moment in your life where you're not trying to reach for something better reaching for something to grab onto and pull yourself up. Those who live the life of a champion understand these things. Coach Pete, your coaching and your words of encouragement will always inspire my teammates and me. You'll never know how much they meant to us. Well, you might, due to the fact that they are tattooed on half the team. Well, I graduated Metro State in the spring of 2010. I left there a 2-time national champion and a 6-time All-American, and have competed in numerous USA championships. My success had everything to do with me being at the right place at the right time. I had the right teammates to get me through the daily grind, and I had the right coach to be successful. I'll never forget my teammates, because without them, none of this would have ever been possible. Thank you to my family for always believing I could achieve more. To my brother, without you, running would have never been an option. And to my son, who gave me purpose and a desire to make him see that you can achieve anything you put your mind to. To a coach who instilled more than track formulas, but life lessons to his athletes. And once again, thank you, family and friends, teammates, and coaches. You have made this moment possible for me. Last but not least, thank you to Metro State University Athletics Program. You believed in a kid whose dream was to compete and race. Thank you for my second chance.